You know, our government is bought out, occupied by Israel, when even something that would help US politicians get elected has to be hidden if it disparages Israel. That's the point we're at right now. So this has to do with Democrats, but if you watch my channel, you know I never make things a Democrat versus Republican thing. But this is the example we have so far, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. After Kamala Harris lost her presidential campaign, they did an autopsy report. So when you do an autopsy report for a presidential campaign, you basically have a group of people and they do a deep dive on why she lost. They ask a lot of people in all 50 states. They do a lot of analysis. They have a whole team. So it's a very, thorough investigation into what could have been better, what specific issues. And surprisingly, after the campaign team did the autopsy for the 2024 election for Kamala Harris's campaign, they decided not to release it. That was weird, because usually they always release this stuff, especially because the party wants to know how the party can improve, what they should be focusing on, what they shouldn't be focusing on. And it's recently came out, Axios reported recently, that after speaking with individuals that are part of the autopsy report team and speaking to groups that team worked with, one of the main reason they decided not to even release it to the public is because they recognize, after doing this deep dive analysis, that Kamala Harris lost and was negatively affected by the fact that her stance on Israel, that she supports Israel, the unrelenting support for Israel. Now, me and you definitely knew this. This is pretty obvious. That definitely negatively affected her campaign. That's obvious. It's one thing for us to know it, and it's one thing for the data to show it too, and for her and for her team and for the Democrats themselves, who the entire establishment, left or right, Republicans, Democrats, they're both bought out by Israel. So the idea of a Democratic establishment, the establishment of the DNC, saying, well, we're actually, it's actually not good if we support Israel, while all the money coming into the DNC is pro-Israel money, it doesn't work out. So they were like, well, we don't know what to do with this information. Let's just scrub it. So Khanna, the reason I have this pulled up on my screen, Democratic Congressman Khanna, who speaks out a lot about Israel, calls it a genocide, calls what's happening correctly a genocide, and he was really supportive, and he was working with Thomas Massie on the release of the Epstein files, the two of them. He's finally coming out and saying, today I'm calling on the DNC to release the autopsy report about the 2024 election. So take a listen to this.
Today, I'm calling on the DNC to release the full autopsy report of the 2024 election. We need to deal with the hard truths about how our failure to stop the genocide in Gaza cost us support. Only when we have a new moral direction in this party will we win back the country's trust.
So, I mean, it makes sense. This isn't anything, it shouldn't be anything controversial. It makes sense. They don't want to actually face the facts. So when I say they, I mean the establishment. The establishment refuses to look at the facts as they are. Now, just this video alone caused massive backlash from the Israel mob, specifically AIPAC. So AIPAC is now stating that Khanna is spreading blood libel. Not kidding, of course. So here it is, AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which is basically an Israeli group in the United States that's working as an unregistered foreign agent. Khanna isn't seeking facts. He's seeking cover to repeat a modern blood libel, saying that's what's happening in Gaza is a genocide based on as all the evidence that's available. They'll go ahead, instead of actually trying to talk about the statement, talk about why he's using that word. Instead, they're going to use the word blood libel to cover up for it. They'll just say, well, that's anti-Semitic. You can't say that. And now this would actually be a really good time to show my disclaimer here. Again, this video is not intended to promote hate. We're just reporting on facts and everything else established. This is how badly our government is occupied now, to where even if it actually would help politicians get elected, they still don't want to come out publicly and state that supporting Israel costs us elections. Isn't that crazy? Because ultimately they need the pro-Israel money, but they can't have people know they support Israel because that doesn't help them get elected. So they're kind of playing this limbo game. They don't know what to do. They're sweating. So they're right now just focusing on scrubbing the evidence. And this is why people don't want to vote for these individuals anymore, whether on the right or the left. Both sides are bought out. Both sides are both wings of the same exact bird. So here's a deep dive. Here's the Axios report. This one was posted just a couple of days ago. Scoop: Dems working on secret report found Gaza costs Harris votes. February 22nd, top Democratic officials who worked on the party's still secret autopsy of the 2024 election concluded that Kamala Harris lost significant support because of the Biden administration's approach to the war in Gaza. The DNC research on what went wrong in 2024 has been under lock and key since the party's leaders decided last year to hide it from the public, a reflection of how explosive it could resonate within the party and beyond. Progressive and modern Democrats are particularly divided over Israel. During her brief campaign, she sought to strike a balance, and the DNC aides putting together the report on her loss to Donald Trump had closed-door conversations with a pro-Palestine group about the Israel-Gaza conflict, and activists told the DNC that support for Israel was a factor in the party's losses. And Democratic officials have verified this themselves after that have worked with on the report. So, I mean, they're going out publicly and stating this now. We already knew this to be true a while ago. But what's so interesting from all of this is, again, they are willing to do things. They're willing to act in a way that's going to cost them the election because they're more fearful of being known as somebody that doesn't support Israel or shedding the truth on Israel. They're more fearful of that than of actually not even winning the race. It sounds actually, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's completely irrational. It doesn't make sense why, if you're somebody that wants to get elected, this would be the exact opposite of what you would want to do, yet they're doing it because ultimately they're too fearful of Israel. They're too fearful of the Israeli mob in the United States, which operates as a gang. They operate as a gang because what they'll do is if something like this came out, well, how do we know how the pro-Israel lobby is going to act? The DNC, which is heavily funded by pro-Israel groups, is going to get contacted by a lot of very angry people, a lot of very angry pro-Israel activists, pro-Israel mob, Zionists, whatever you want to call it. They're going to get contacted and say, hey, you better try to scrub this thing, or state that it was inaccurate, or state that you did it wrong, state the methodology was wrong. Otherwise, we're going to pull a few $1 million from the DNC. Otherwise, we're not going to support this. Otherwise, we're not going to support that. This is how they work. And since these groups need a lot of money, they're sweating, and they're like, well, it's better we just scrub it. Take a look at the Charlie Kirk, for example, Turning Point USA. What happened? Well, after Charlie Kirk had Tucker Carlson speak, a donor that donated $2 million pulled out and was no longer donating to Turning Point because they used the money as leverage to get them to go in a specific direction. And the DNC is no different, and these politicians are no different, which is why the establishment is always going to be pro-Israel, because even if the pro-Israel mob doesn't necessarily support the institution, they'll still fund the institution, not because they support it, but because they want to control it. And meanwhile, the institutions just take the money because they want as much money as they can get, not realizing they just sold themselves off, or maybe even realizing they sold themselves off and doing it anyway. Well, now it starts to cause a lot of problems when the trends are going one way, where the people of a country are going one way, and the establishment is set on not moving in that direction because everything, the house of cards, just completely collapses in on itself. So we'll see where things go where things will go moving forward. If you found this video interesting, I'd appreciate it if you click the subscribe button below and give it a thumbs up as well. Otherwise,